Hey, look at that. I made it just in time, right? Uh no, look, I know the Astros are playing the A's right now, but they got this on lockdown. This will be fine. Javier started off a little dicey, but it'll be all good. Oh, they were what Jordan was 0 for 9 and had a home run on his first at bat. So we're good to go. My wife's gonna alert me with any breaking news if we need to get to it. I wanted to do something today that was kind of befitting the holidays, which was just sit and react to a few of the different documentaries floating around out there. One, Building the Texans, chapter 1 and 2, and two would be Road to the Pros with Henry To'oTo'o. Son of a bitch. To'oTo'o. Episodes 3 and 4. I know a lot of you have watched me react to episodes 1 and 2. So we're gonna have a good old time. The DeAndre Hopkins situation, I'm aware of. I have solicited arguments for signing DeAndre Hopkins. I will counter those probably either later tonight, although I'm drinking beer right now, or tomorrow, because I don't think it's the right thing for the Texans right now. I love DeAndre Hopkins. I just don't think he's the right person for us to love right now. As far as Joe's question, where are you? I am on my father-in-law's property, my mother and father-in-law's property in upstate New York. He was a dairy farmer, and he sold his cows probably about 15, 20 years ago, and just kind of became he does like he's got a timber stand up there, so he cuts wood. He's got maple syrup. If you can see the blue lines right there, those are his maple syrup lines. He does deer processing, cuts deer in the fall, and he's just basically and he does hay in the summer. So he's like living off the land. It's pretty much ideal, and they're awesome. So that's up in Portville, New York, upstate New York, which is way, 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 way away from. We shop at the closest good store to shop at for groceries or anything else is like 20 minutes away. So we're not super super remote, but pretty remote. How do you feel about Davis Mills being open about competing with CJ? I personally think it's great. I think it's great too, Gabe. So let's get into this. All right. Building the Texans. You'll recall a couple years ago, the Texans did a similar documentary where they documented the building of the team. Really, I think the last couple years they've done this, and I did not sense the same reception at those points as I do right now, where there's a fervor and an excitement and a rejuvenated fan base. It's really, really cool to see. I count myself amongst one of those. And episode 1 of Building the Texans was really all about the hiring of DeMeco Ryans. So the first clip we'll watch here is a little bit of intro, a montage of all the different various media types, anticipating the arrival and introductory press conference of DeMeco Ryans. Let's see.
This would be a really, really good hire.
The team has come to an agreement with DeMeco Ryans to be their next head coach. Your thoughts on that hire?
All along, a really feel-good story in Houston.
DeMeco Ryans is a genuine leader. Who's that guy? Genuine leader. What YouTube channel did they pull that from? I was really excited when Sean Pendergast pointed this out to me. So that's not that great a still shot. Genuine leader. But that is a little bit of a theme that I want to hit on, and it's going to be in throughout this episode, was like the genuine leadership of DeMeco Ryans. And I think it's important because right now, and really for a long time, there's been a tendency to try to go after the next offensive guru or a defensive guru, less rarely so. And it's not necessarily always awesome when it's not always the best way to find good leaders. Whereas, sometimes guys are hired for their leadership skills. I think DeMeco's a good blend of both, where he's demonstrated prowess as a strategist, as a defensive mind and defensive coordinator, but he's also got very, very obvious leadership skills, which I and a bunch of former players that we're going to see in this video have identified from a young age. Basically, all the players identified him as a future head coach the minute he walked in the door. This is going to be Chester Pitts talking about a conversation he had with Kylie Wong, the linebacker, back in 2006, very early in training camp. And this was a pretty much unanimous opinion from all of us back in training camp of 2006.
And he came up to me one day and he was like, yo, listen to me, Pitts. This kid is going to be special. He is going to be the starter. He is going to be the leader of the defense. And because you got to remember, even though he was drafted, he was second round pick, but he was still the backup.
Yeah. And Kylie's an interesting one there too, because Kylie was coming back from a really catastrophic knee injury that he had in Seattle on a primetime game. Was it Sunday Night Football back in 2005? It was really where a lot of things went south in 2005, was when Kylie got hurt. Like, we'd been struggling, and then so Kylie was coming back from that injury and doing an incredible job at it, because it was a really devastating injury. But he had this kid, DeMeco Ryans, just arriving like at every tackle just before DeMeco could get there. And at one point, I remember during that season, I was on IR for most of the year, but I was in, doing rehab and talking to guys. And I was telling Kylie once, I still feel bad about this, that my wife, Brandy, had told me, like, God, every time where like I'd expect Kylie to be there making the play, all of a sudden DeMeco shows up. And Kylie was like, thanks, Seth. Thanks for the vote of confidence as I'm fighting like hell to come back from this knee injury. But he knew, like, Kylie was busting my balls a little bit, but like he knew exactly what I was talking about. It was really amazing the way he was playing and the way he emerged as a leader. This is Brian Cushing, who was younger than DeMeco, remember, talking about just how smart DeMeco was.
He called plays out. It was like playing with a coach on the field at times. It was like a cheat sheet of taking a test and the guy next to you knows all the answers.
Yeah, and that's just maybe lay off your USC experience there a little bit, Brian. They've taken enough hits from that era that you don't have to be talking about having cheating off of the guy that has all the answers next to you. But I think it's an intelligence, like what they talk about with Tom Brady and being able to call out plays, because lots of guys can watch film, lots of guys can pick out tendencies, but it's different to incorporate into the game the things you've learned in film. And then the really big thing that happens, and this is what guys like DeMeco and Tom Brady are really good at, is there's what you see on film, but then there's taking that knowledge and through the first and second quarters figuring out exactly how it applies, because things are going to be a little bit different. Some things are going to be tweaked, and you're going to learn things that maybe you saw on film, or things that didn't quite make sense to you. And then all of a sudden in the game, seeing it in real time, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. This is what it is. And like DeMeco was that guy, and like freakishly so. They show a couple clips in this, and I linked it below. So just go ahead and you can go watch Building the Texans after you see me react to it, of course, so you know appropriately how to take it all in. You can see there's one play in there where he flummoxes Peyton Manning and makes Peyton call a timeout. So really, really cool. This is Nick Caserio talking about the interview process. Oh, with Sean Pendergast, my co-host on Sports Radio 610, 6 to 10 a.m. in the morning, every weekday, except tomorrow. So please, you can subscribe to our podcast for Payne and Pendergast, or listen on 610 in real time.
Happy DeMeco Ryans unveiling day to all of you.
We kind of had some parting words. Do you have anything else you want to leave with us? And he said, like, basically, I want to come home. This is my dream job. Let's make it happen.
So that was at the introductory press conference, and that was one thing that was really frustrating for a lot of us here locally. Well, back home locally, was the fact that people acted like somehow the Texans had like forced him into this. There were so many takes the next day. Remember Keyshawn Johnson saying, I don't know why he couldn't get one of the good jobs. I don't understand why he had to go to the Texans. I'm like, no, he really, really wanted to go to the Texans. So just suck on that, man. This was, let's see. Oh, okay. Nick Caserio talking about DeMeco being a former player.
say his ability to connect on a lot of different levels, whether it's our current players, because he's been in their shoes, he understands some of the things that they're going through, and sometimes when that message comes from a former player, it carries a little bit more weight.
I think that's true. I think sometimes that can be overstated too. Like, I remember Don Shula was a former player, and I remember a lot of players, especially back in the old days when he was kind of hardcore, being like, "Hey, man, like, why don't you lay off on all this discipline stuff? You're kind of a wild child yourself back in the day." He was a stud player, but he also had a good time. And I mean, Jerry Richardson was the owner who was a former NFL player, and he was known as like one of the biggest hard asses in the league. I think almost like trying to prove that he wasn't going to be too cushy with the players. He was known as a hard ass in terms of fighting anything extra for players. So sometimes it's a little bit overstated. I think DeMeco has found that balance. DeMeco himself has said that early on when he was a position coach, he was a little bit too hard, a little bit too intense, a little bit too tough. So he's found that right balance. And I think having that knowledge and that understanding that, like, okay, sometimes guys genuinely do need a break. Sometimes a couple guys will say they need a break, but they're full of crap, and you got to be able to see through that and find all that right balance. And DeMeco's got that. I like everything he said about him. This is DeMeco talking about mentoring Brian Cushing, because Brian Cushing in this documentary obviously says a lot of really nice stuff about DeMeco.
Because I knew if I poured into him everything that I knew and I helped him, if he was playing his best, I was playing my best, and we all played our best, then I knew we would deliver wins.
Okay, so it's important here. Sometimes when I'll say, like, I like a phrase or something, like, oh, pouring himself into him, and I'll ask, like, where exactly did that come from? Few of you get very uppity about telling me when it's a Bible verse. So don't tell. I know my Luke 6:38, okay? But the concept of pouring yourself into somebody, I really love that. I really love that visual of just kind of just like filling somebody's cup with knowledge or inspiration or whatever it might be. And DeMeco has used that. DeMeco who's very devout. He's used that phrasing quite a bit. He's used pouring himself into people, but then he's also used when talking about strictly football, playing with your hair on fire, a couple other cliches that have started to emerge. Playing with your hair on fire is big, especially from a bald man. I appreciate and respect the fact that he's willing to use a metaphor about hair on fire when he has no hair to burn. And but he played like his hair was on fire. I can't remember. Was DeMeco bald from the very beginning, or shaved head, I guess, from the very beginning? Yeah, he was, wasn't he? He never. Boy, he's intense, man. He's probably got a full head of hair right there. He just decides to shave it like he's a Spartan or something. Brian Cushing. Oh, this is big. Okay. This is a huddle breakdown. I never got to participate in this because my last year in the NFL was his rookie year, and I was on IR for most of the year. So I didn't get to see exactly what this was like when he would break down the huddle at the beginning of the game. This is badass.
Houston Texans, what up? What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? Hey, tell them boys to shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Hey, tell them boys we here. We here. We here. We here. We here. We here. Hey, everybody, it's all you. All you. It's all you. It's all you. It's all you. It's all you. We right now. We right now.
It just felt right.
I want to go hear Travis Johnson there talking about how it feels right. I want to go hit somebody right this moment. I want you to watch something really carefully here because, whenever there's like a group like this for the pep talk at the beginning, I never once in my entire career had like a really cool ritual like this. And I wish I had, because there's a tendency to sometimes like, all right, you get a pep talk an hour in the NFL and through college football. And there comes a tendency sometimes to be a little bit maybe deaf to it, and there's usually a group of guys that are all hype in the beginning, and there's some guys that are kind of hanging out in the back being like, all right, let's get this thing moving. When you get something like this, and Drew Brees would do it in New Orleans, it's a lot of fun. Like, watch Arian Foster, noted skeptic and cynic at times. Like, look at how much fun he's having.
Right now.
It just felt right.
He's having a blast, man. So that's just good stuff right there. So I think those are the two sides of DeMeco. I think there's the side you're going to see in press conference will be the kind that I think, like, if he hadn't played in the NFL, he would be a guy that in press conferences after a while, I think people would say, like, oh, like kind of like what they would with Gary Kubiak. I don't know if he's fiery enough. I don't know if he's tough enough, all that. And then you see him in meeting rooms, and it's a whole different deal. Kubiak, you didn't really have that player side of him to check back with. But in on the sidelines, he was a lot calmer too. You see DeMeco really celebrating with his guys. Like DeMeco, kind of like we talked about with him being a player coach, he's just figured out a way to balance it all, and he's done it really, really well. This is Brian Cushing talking about how genuine he is. Well, DeMeco is also talking to a group of former players here.
He's as genuine as a person you'll meet, and you're not going to find anybody to really complain or say a bad word about the guy.
See, that's Fred Weary, Charles Spencer, Charlie Anderson, and Travis Johnson.
I know it seems like everything I'm saying is so positive, but just it's who he is. And I think this is why it was, such a quick deal to get him here.
Yeah, and like I felt the same as Brian. I think that sometimes when you talk about DeMeco and you're gushing about him and you're saying all these things about him, it almost sounds and feels like, all right, I'm not explaining this quite right. You ever have like a revelation about something, and you're just kind of, maybe you're driving and thinking about stuff, and something just kind of dawns on you, and then you try to explain it to somebody else, and it just sounds like you're saying a platitude of some sort. Like yeah, everybody knows that, but you really feel it and believe it. That's how it is with DeMeco. You say like, no, he really connects with players, and you can almost see people as you say that thinking like, yeah, all right, I like lots of guys connect with players. Like, no, you gotta understand. He's just got a different way. It's hard to explain. And I think that Nick Caserio it's been fun to listen to Nick Caserio talk about it, because I think he'd heard a lot of stuff about DeMeco Ryans, but now he's seeing it in person and getting the full DeMeco Ryans experience and very much enjoying it, especially after these last couple of years. Okay, so I just wanted to show this because this is DeMeco getting a big hug from Andre Johnson. And he'd already seen him to this day. This was the introductory press conference. There was a party, a little reception for former players that I thought I was going to be able to make it to, but I started doing a live stream with you people and ended up getting down here like right after everybody had left. So I missed out on all the free food and camaraderie.
Baby. What's up, Coach?
Ain't no more cap.
Thanks, Coach.
What's up, Coach?
Oh, man. You the man. You got some reps in you?
Yeah, no, Andre's not. Andre looks like a defensive end, like in a good way. He looks bigger, but in a very good way. Like he's still working out. It's some of those more intense places where they work out, like the athlete training stuff. So I think he's going to be around a lot. He was there the night that Stingley, well, the second day of the draft when not Stingley, when Will Anderson and CJ Stroud showed up. Andre was there during the day and after the press conference talking with those guys. So I think Andre's kind of been in the fold, out of the fold at various times over the last few years. I think DeMeco is going to be a big thing for him. Nick Caserio makes a really good point here. It sounds like he's almost being a spoil sport or something, but it's a very real thing.
Going into the head coach chair, quite frankly, nobody's really prepared for it. So you just have to go in with the right mindset. And I think some of the qualities that you see in DeMeco as a coach, that you also saw as a player, those manifest themselves during the course of the interview process. There's so many things that go into being a good head coach and a first-time head coach. But if you have the right mindset, you have the right principles, and you're consistent and true to your beliefs, then at least you have an opportunity to give yourself a chance for success.
Yeah, so I mean, like obviously that's not the most inspirational thing in the world, giving yourself an opportunity to have a chance of success. But the part about really never being prepared for it, I think that's very true from what I've seen. It doesn't mean that you can't still excel as you're doing it. It's just that there's going to be challenges along the way that even though people have told you about, that you're not really prepared for it until you actually go through it yourself, until you have that experience. I remember Gary Kubiak was very, very well prepared. Had been in the NFL as a player and a coach forever. And there were still a few moments that first year where you could see like, oh, he's realizing the enormity of like how everything comes back to him, and it's just different when you're not the key decision maker. So I think DeMeco's as prepared as anybody ever has been, despite not having actually been a coach in the NFL for all that long. And then here's DeMeco talking about what it was like, or how players like myself recognized leadership in him when he was a player.
Right, I was just honored, for those guys to respect me in that light. I'm just trying to go out and play football to the best of my ability, and those guys saw something different in me. Right, they saw a leader in me. Right, they saw someone that they wanted to get behind, someone that they wanted to follow, and I was just being myself. And that's what I see moving into this new position. It's just the same. I'm going to be myself, right? Be who I've always been, and try to recreate that brotherhood amongst our locker room that we have today.
Recreate that brotherhood. That's a good. That's good for when I chop this up and put that episode out. I'll do that on the thumbnail. Recreate that brotherhood. I felt very good after this documentary, and did so at the time. I know a lot of you have seen some of that footage already, but I just like revisiting that fact that, oh yeah, DeMeco Ryans was a long shot in the hearts and minds of many of us not too long ago. And it almost seemed impossible that it would actually work out, given how many hits we'd taken to the reputation of the team, to the win-loss record, for all those things. I like to remind myself sometimes just what a coup it was to land DeMeco Ryans. So if you are new to the station, please subscribe. I am Seth Payne, former NFL defensive lineman. I played 10 years in the NFL. I have a sports radio show with Sean Pendergast on 6:10 a.m. in Houston these days, and also this YouTube channel. But Texans news and NFL news daily as we enter training camp in the NFL season. So please subscribe and like. The second episode of Building the Texans. Building the Texans, documentary about the building of the Texans this offseason, starting with the hire of DeMeco Ryans, moves on to the draft. And this one got me going. When I was cutting this down to where I wasn't just flat out playing a straight video, I had a really hard time with this because there's just a lot of stuff in here that got me juiced up. So it was really, really cool to see. It's the opposite of how sometimes after like a really bad season, like the Texans have had these last couple of years, they still have to do a highlight reel at the end of the year. And you're like, all right, there are some really good plays, but this feels kind of empty. This is the exact opposite of that. Whatever the opposite of that highlight reel at the end of the season was, this is a hype video about a team that you can actually get hyped about. And it started with Cal McNair driving himself to the draft party. Man of the people.
Well, I'm excited to see the fans. I know there's a lot of excitement around the draft and the draft picks we have coming up, and get their reaction. And
Texas Chair CEO Cal McNair.
It's going to be fun. Hope you all
enjoy
it. And let's go, Texas!
It's been cool to see Cecil Shorts grow into that role as like halftime. Well, he does the games at the game, like the actual little, the people making a sandwich and running and doing contests and everything, and a lot of stuff like that. And he's really, really good at it, especially for a guy who's a middle school vice principal. Like he's got to be the nicest vice principal ever. Usually the vice principals are kind of got to be the jerks, right? I will point out though, yes, Cal, man of the people and driving himself, he did have a police escort. So a little bit here, a little bit there. If I had the means, I would certainly hire a police escort for just about everything I ever do. And just to maybe I'll hire some out of work actors to pose as police, be my police escort, and people will think I'm a really big deal. I'll do that. So this is there was a really good montage at the beginning, kind of with like some driving music and encapsulating the whole night. I chopped this up a little bit, but just listen to whether this is a draft night documentary or the beginning of an episode of Game of Thrones.
Hello, CJ. What's up, Nate? What's happening, brother? How you doing? I'm doing well. I'm feeling a lot better now.
Welcome to Texas, bud.
The
Houston Texans select CJ Stroud.
I bring somebody who's going to go to work every day and work their tail off.
To the Houston Texans.
Let's go, my man. Let's go.
Will Anderson Jr.
This is one of the most remarkable beginnings of an NFL draft we can remember.
Go get it. Let's go.
Yeah, so between that and DeMeco doing the huddle break, I'm good to go, man. I'm ready to go. I'm juiced up. I'm ready to go. I think that, for one, very good job by Texans media putting that part out. Two, I feel like I was at the draft party. I didn't realize, and they'll show a few more clips here as we go along, I didn't realize just how big that all looked when you're down on the stage looking up. I was kind of off in the wings, having some conversations with people, explaining to, some of the former players who were there. I won't name who they are, but basically after the Texans took CJ Stroud, one of them said, who is he? Is he a quarterback? So not all former players are all that checked in or paying attention. These are none of the. This was not a guy that was like on the in media or anything. Like that wasn't. Let's see. And ND Kalu was there. ND Kalu recently kind of retired from radio, but still going to be involved this season. Obviously, ND Kalu knows all that stuff. But it was cool to hang out with ND for a while. But Andre Johnson during all of that, was pumped up. It was pretty cool. Like as pumped up as I've ever seen Andre away from an actual football event. That was really, really cool. Like an on-field event. That was really, really cool to see. So here's Will Anderson's family immediately after the draft.
Very excited.
Very excited.
How you doing?
I'm proud of you. Mommy, I'm proud of you. The Anderson goes to Houston. I'm very proud, very proud. Thank you.
Okay, that was just cool to see because Will Anderson here, especially in this documentary linked below, is talks about family a lot, like how important his family is to him, how appreciative he is. He's got 5 older sisters and him. So, he knows how to handle direction because he's got his mother, 5 older sisters, his father who, worked night shifts and everything to try to support 6 kids. At least he had 6 kids. Man, I don't know, man. I'm doing all right in life, but these kids are expensive. If I had 5 times I'm a baby. I couldn't do it. This is CJ and Will immediately afterwards, and Sean Pendergast has made a good point about this. I want you to watch these two, and these guys it was fun to watch them throughout this episode really start to bond, and they knew each other already, but kind of teasing each other. It was a lot of fun.
I was tired, bro. I was just praying, bro. Yeah. Bro. When I went to Houston, bro, I loved it, bro. Yeah, facts. Then I got my boy Mitch, Christian Harris down there, Steen. Bro.
Okay, so let's see. First one, he said when I went to Houston, he loved it. And I can imagine, too, when he visited the facility, John Mechie probably said hi to him. Christian Harris probably said hi to him. And this was before that draft night. That was before Henry To'oTo'o was drafted. So there's all kinds of Alabama dudes there. But the other point that Sean Pendergast made about it that was interesting was these guys in getting drafted that close together in such a unique situation, they had kind of a comfort level. I think by the time they got introduced and they were able to be up there on stage, it's kind of cool to have somebody that is drafted as high as you and in a lot of ways is in the same boat. Okay, CJ Stroud's going to have a lot of pressure on him. Obviously, he's a quarterback. Will Anderson's going to have a lot of pressure on him as a guy that the Texans traded the second most aggressive trade for a non-quarterback in NFL draft history. That's a lot of pressure on Will Anderson. And I think these guys both seem very adept and capable of handling pressure, but it's kind of nice for them to have each other side by side this entire time. And they'll be able to have that bond for the rest of their lives, which CJ mentions a little bit later. It's kind of cool. This with no sound added. I'm glad I saw this part because it clarified something for me. So this is these two guys while they were on the Zoom call with Houston media. And the angle I saw from the feed that I got, I thought that Will Anderson was texting as CJ Stroud was talking, which would have been fine. I figured these guys are getting 400 texts and they're trying to reply. So CJ Anderson was answering a question. I thought maybe I thought maybe Will was texting or something. But look, he's just twiddling his thumbs. Just some good old fashioned thumb twiddling right there. He's dialed in. He's focused. He's paying attention to. And I want you to watch this if they show it. Look at that. Okay, can we get this straight? These guys are staring into a ring light with a camera on a conversation with Houston media, answering questions. Well, on the monitor, instead of showing the people answering the questions like you would do on a Zoom call, they're looking at like footage of fans at the draft or something. Or no, they're footage of the fans at the draft party. That's it's unacceptable. Get that better next year. Damn it. Hopefully we won't have guys at the number 2 and number 3 overall pick. God, please not. So this is, and there's a few instances of this in the documentary, which is linked below. But I really enjoyed watching Will Anderson and just like how young and innocent he seemed through all of this, kind of awestruck by things. As I'm still
man, like if I told my 5-year-old self that was just playing in the grass out in practice while everybody's feeling each other, like you'll be in the NFL right now, I don't know what I would say. He probably would say, shut up, and probably get back to doing what he was doing. Okay,
see that's a natural born storyteller right there. I have to point this out. It doesn't seem like a big deal, and it doesn't seem he was imagining his 5-year-old self, and in imagining telling his 5-year-old self what had just happened, he really tried to get in the head of his 5-year-old self and think about what his 5-year-old self would have said and then what he would have gone on to do. That's good imagery right after you've been drafted and you've kind of had your mind blown. And this is him continuing on being just delightful and genuine.
Like for me, we're coworkers.
Okay, so he's talking about the guys following him at this point are Texans media members, so they're Texans employees. And he's saying we're coworkers.
Like it's not like college. We're like I'm a student athlete. Like I actually work with y'all, so like we're coworkers. Like that's crazy. Those are my coworkers. Like I'm a working man in America now.
Yeah, I love that. I love that I'm a working man in America right now. And I guess young and I said innocent, young and appreciative. He's very, very appreciative for a guy that played at Alabama and was like one of the defensive studs in the nation at the University of Alabama for the last 3 years. He still acts like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm here. And it's like, I mean, in some respects, he's never going to get the same amount of adulation and love that he got at Alabama. He could be JJ Watt and it's not quite the same. It's a little bit, the intensity is not going to be the same as it is in college. And it's really cool to see that. The other thing cool to see in this chapter 2 of Building the Texans was kind of the camaraderie that you can see between CJ Stroud and Will Anderson as they kind of, they tease each other, they jab at each other a little bit.
Don't get used to holding that. I used to.
You feel me?
Do you run the ball? Can you play? Can you play tight end?
But my first love was running back.
Oh, okay. You a big running back.
But my high school coach
DK Henry
changed
that. No, sir.
Oh, you said DK Henry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. So from Alabama. Oh man, that's the thing about I've noticed about CJ is when he teases, he softens everything, like good natural innate leadership skills where he'll tease a little bit, but he'll always try to soften it, or he'll, like even there talking about it, giving him the compliment of being a big ass running back and all that. But there also is a side of him I've noticed where he always does just kind of make a point of like, okay, no, but seriously, when it comes to quarterbacking, like it's me. Like it reminds me of the very, very commonly made comparison between CJ Stroud and Steve Prefontaine, the cross-country runner, the long-distance runner from the University of Oregon back in the 1970s, where if you ever saw remember there were like 2 Steve Prefontaine movies made within 3 months of each other in the 90s. It was one of the weirdest things ever. But in one of those, I think it was the Jared Leto one, he's like out at some event with kids, and he's racing a kid, like a 12-year-old. And at the very end, he just kind of speeds up to be sure that the 12-year-old doesn't beat him, because he never wants to psychologically get in the mindset of letting a kid beat him. I like that. I like that obsessive, maniacal competitiveness, where even when you're joking around, you want to be sure that you're just a little. Now, am I overanalyzing this? Of course I am. Of course I am. There's no games to play right now. But basically, I'm saying he's the greatest natural-born leader in the history of man. First jet ride with the Texans at the Texans' expense. And this is these guys leaving the draft and headed to Houston the next day. Let's be sure I get this set up right. How did I do no sound? Must have been a reason.
My family has made so many sacrifices.
It's odd.
For me.
Go. Let me see if did you guys lose the sound here? No, Seth, they're being interviewed by the rappers and Cecil at the party. They were interviewed by lots of people. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. All right. Let's see. I want to be sure you guys get this sound, but I don't know why it's not coming out.
Me leading up into this moment.
This is a wrench and a half. Let me see if I get this. Sometimes if it's not coming through my ear pads, yeah, it went to AirPods. Stupid. Why would it be on AirPods? I don't even have my AirPods out. All right. I'm going to stick these into external headphones. All right. Let me turn off my Bluetooth too, everybody, okay? Just bear with me while I turn my Bluetooth off. I just finally successfully got everybody in my family separate Apple IDs, and I thought these Bluetooth issues were over. Not to mention oh shit, I turned my Bluetooth off and now my mouse won't work. All right, we're good. No! Ugh. Hold on a second. Let's see how this goes.
You know, running up and down the road for me to lead.
Start this over, because when I edit this later, we're gonna have to see this. Okay, there we go.
My family has made so many sacrifices for me to leading up into this moment, you know, running up and down the road with me, you know, taking me to camps and everything like that. And so I'm so appreciative of them. You know, my dad working late nights, my mom getting off of work early, trying to take me to rec ball practice, everything like that. So
all right. Okay, I'm turning it off. I know it's the kid's trying to use my AirPods. External headphones. I have to use my touchpad like a peasant. Son of a bitch. All right. Okay, here we go. We'll go back one more time. I can't believe you guys have all stuck with me through these hard times. I appreciate it. It's like it's 2018 in here. You guys deserve better than this. And I see what you're saying about when the rappers are being interviewed from the monitor. I apologize, SI Texans. You're exactly right. I see exactly what you mean. Just a general trash performance by me over the last 3 minutes. So I'm guessing this wasn't their first.
My family has made.
I'm guessing this wasn't their first private jet ride. I remember my first private jet ride, like after my rookie year, in the NFL, and I remember my mind being blown. These guys kind of look like, another private jet. You know, the Alabama boosters have a nicer one than this, but whatever.
So many sacrifices for me to leading up into this moment, you know, running up and down the road with me, you know, taking me to camps and everything like that. And so I'm so appreciative of them. You know, my dad working late nights, my mom getting off of work early, trying to take me to rec ball practice, everything like that. So I wanted to be in this moment with them and have them, you know, be somewhere special with me during this time.
I like, so Will, again, talking a lot about his family. And the fact that I like the fact that he understands and knows that his parents made sacrifices. I feel like as a parent, it's important to point that out, except without making it sound like a guilt trip. But just sometimes kids don't appreciate just like how miserable it is being a parent to a teenager when you have to sacrifice various things to try to get him to this or get him to that. And his dad, especially, like we said, raising 6 kids, I'm guessing, in working nights, was under a certain amount of stress, and his mom obviously as well, trying to raise him. So I like that Will Anderson is like 400% into his family. Here's a little bit more of okay. So this is good. This is when they show up at the facility and they see Hannah and Cal McNair for the first time. I get the sense that this is the first time that CJ Stroud at least has met Hannah McNair.
Good to see you. Thank you. You look amazing.
So do you.
Thank you. I brought the right colors.
Yeah, you did. You've been in the right colors.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to overanalyze this. CJ Stroud, very mature of him in the way he delivered that compliment. You look amazing. As a young man, again, Q rating, social skills, emotional intelligence, all of that way above whatever the S2 cognition test would have you believe. And also Hannah McNair, kudos to her for recognizing basically any kind of red is close enough. The red of Ohio State, the red of that suit right there, any red is close enough to battle red, that he's been wearing the right colors all along. And Hannah McNair also, just as acknowledgement of her becoming basically a cult hero here in Houston over the last 6 months. It's been one of the plot twists in the Texans saga that I did not anticipate, and I'm here for it. I think it's awesome. More emotion as these two. Okay, so the way it works in this, where they are right there in the south end zone entrance, they would walk up the stairs. There's stairs to the left and stairs to the right. They probably walked up the stairs to the left into the football offices, and the office, whether this was Nick Casario's or I almost said Gary Kubiak's office, either Nick Casario's or DeMeco Ryan's office, it overlooks the parking lot in the south end zone there, overlooking the Bulls and the Bud Light Plaza and all that. Now look at Nick. Look at that emotion. Look at that. Like the dual pats. His right hand is just like very firmly. Nick doesn't show this kind of emotion. Everybody said this was DeMeco's pick. I feel like it was Nick talking it in. Everybody. I put this into slow motion because just look at this. This is a dramatic moment between those two. I also want to say this. I get like a John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan vibe out of DeMeco Ryans and Nick Caserio. And I know there's a lot of differences there in a lot of ways, except there is like a feeling of youth. Now, John Lynch was a raw rookie GM when he took over, but I felt like those two guys were very much aligned and had the same mindset. I feel that way with Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans. And DeMeco's not that much younger than Nick either. Nick's been in the league forever, but DeMeco's not that much younger than him. So it's I like this. I don't know if you guys have been able to tell or not, but I'm getting kind of excited about the Texans this year. This is CJ and Will clowning around once again after these two finish their.
So I'll just have both of y'all give opening statements after I introduce.
Only question is, who wants to go first?
First pick.
I'll go first.
First pick, and he the QB.
For the next 15 years, he'll be saying is when we have kids, you gotta have kids first, bro.
Again, and if that extends out for a while, that's Omar, by the way, the PR guy who's awesome. He took over a couple years ago, and he's very good. And it's been cool to with Omar. It's cool because he grew up in Houston. He was a Texans fan. He got a job with his hometown team, and then had to endure like these last 3 years of just extreme just volatility, I guess. So it was cool to see him be able to stick it out and stick around for whatever this new era is, because he's a Texans fan. He grew up a Texans fan. He's getting to work for his hometown team. Sometimes that's hard to do because you got to suppress your fandom. You don't want to come off like too much of a fanboy, because sometimes those guys can be unprofessional. That's advice for you kids out there. If you are applying for a job somewhere that you're passionate about, you got to try to strike the right balance between knowing and understanding your future employer, but also not sounding psychotic. And it's harder than you might think, especially if you're psychotic, to pull that off. You just got to tamp it down a little bit if you're genuinely psychotic. Your passion will serve you well. It's just sometimes people worry that it might skew your judgment if you're a little too ingrained in the folklore of whatever you love. I'm thinking of Disney here really specifically. CJ, talking about helping people out, flashing what we've seen now, but at the time, I think way more of a sense of humor than we realized he had.
It's hard. My name really in the NFL locker room.
Oh, well, okay, wait. First, that was just that was Will Anderson being awestruck again about being in the NFL in a locker room that, like, we've seen SEC locker rooms. We know what they're like. I'm guessing that this isn't that much different or better than the Alabama locker room, and yet it's an NFL locker room. Love this kid.
I want to just help as many people as I can. I want to help the community. I want to help these potholes as well. But in all seriousness, I want to just help anything that I can do.
Yeah, so they asked him a question about helping out in the community, and he made a joke about our potholes, which this is like any good stand-up comedian who comes in and makes jokes about whatever the local traffic issues are, or in Houston, the omnipresent potholes.
I want to help these potholes as well.
Yeah. At first, I thought he said something about hose, and I was like, well, that might have been a little inappropriate for this for this format, at least. CJ, he said potholes. Pot hose. There's never pot hose. Pot's never been at the point where people are, well, they've hoed themselves out for it, but just not in quite as desperate a fashion, I suppose. We're all hosed for somebody or something, aren't we? So CJ describing the draft party, which, take a look at this. At first, I thought this was the Kansas City draft party, but no, this is the Houston draft party, aka Woodstock 4.
Draft party with over 8,000 people, man, that's just love right there. Something that a lot of people don't do, and they always say everything is bigger in Texas. So being a Cali kid, I'm definitely excited to be out here, and I'm just really ready to roll.
Yeah. Speaking of which, by the way, I have 6 kids and I don't have the half of the red hue. I know. That's what I mean. I don't know that you have half the bread I do, but it's a lot, man. These kids. I'm paying out-of-state tuition next year at University of Oregon. It's bad, man. It's bad. It's cool. It's cool. It's all good. It's all good. Everything's bigger in Texas. I feel like I don't want to, like, okay, obviously we all despise Houston. We have a problem. It's annoying. It's overplayed. It's outdated. It's old. And it's historically disrespectful to the Apollo astronauts. And yet, I've never gotten a sense for whether people get annoyed when people say everything's bigger in Texas, because that is, from people outside the state, I think that is a genuine compliment. The first impression I had at the freaking expansion draft was like, holy crap, this is a big deal. Like, they pulled out all the stops for this. It felt, because the expansion draft was done at the convention center, they made it look like it was Madison Square Garden and everything. I'm like, they don't mess around in Texas. The stories are true. So that's a very, very good thing usually when people are talking about that. Sun is hitting me hard now. So let's see. This is Will Anderson just flat out getting you pumped up.
I have a vision for myself that's so great, and I want to reach it, and I think that's why it keeps me hungry. I'm never satisfied, no matter, the accolades, any of that, because I see something in my future that's so bright and that's, big and nice, and I really just want to go for that.
Yeah. I love that kid, man. I love Will Anderson. I've fought it too. I liked Tyree Wilson. I thought Tyree Wilson was actually more pro-ready from a pass rushing standpoint in a lot of ways. And as we got closer and closer to the draft, the biggest thing that happened was Tyree Wilson's medical grade, or medical reports came out about the very thing that's keeping him out of OTAs right now with the Raiders. But I also just started hearing so much about Will Anderson and what an incredible guy he is and all that. And now you really see it. So that was the Building the Texans documentary. There's a link below. I'm sure they're going to put out more as the season goes along. I'm Seth Payne. I played for the Texans back in the day. I played in the NFL for 10 years. You can please like and subscribe. That would be awesome. We're going to move on into episode 3 on this Sunday viewing party of Texans Documentaries of Road to the Pros. This is Road to the Pros with Henry To'oTo'o, a name which I struggled with for a long time. I think maybe because I try to visualize it as I say it, and that just makes it harder. You just got to remember it's To'oTo'o. But Henry To'oTo'o, the Texans' 5th round selection, who had some injuries at the end of last season, even though he did have some health issues, he decided to play in the Sugar Bowl when he didn't need to. And as he entered the draft, he was preparing for the combine. And that's where this episode picks up, is Henry To'oTo'o training for the combine.
Just a great person, got a great smile, great character, natural leader. So like his traits of the type of person he is, that's what really stuck out to me from like day one.
So, I mean, you hear that over and over again too. It's kind of like Will Anderson. Like, these guys are just awesome dudes. If you're going to go for something, I would say awesome football players who also happen to be awesome dudes. Not a bad strategy. Sometimes some coaches will go for awesome dudes who aren't awesome football players and think they're going to win with congeniality or something. Doesn't typically work that way. So I like the fact that Will Anderson, awesome football player. Henry To'oTo'o, he's got something to prove still. But real quickly, I want to be a meathead for a little bit. And because I know a lot of you guys are meatheads, and go over some of this combine prep
answers
so you can see. Oh, what did I do? I went back to right back to the beginning, didn't I? Here we go. We're gonna get to Henry To'oTo'o as I slowly start dehydrating. So he's bench pressing here. He's training for the bench press. All right. So you see right there, like, that's a relatively close grip. A lot of football players, and I would advise this with your younger players, I don't like the straight bar bench at all. But if you have to do it, don't go super wide because it just puts more stress on the shoulders. A lot of these guys could probably get like 5 extra reps on their bench press if they went super wide, but you got to protect your shoulders. As far as the training that he's doing.
Yeah, proactive, like, of course the 40, of course the shuttle, but like we train the whole body, like definitely train like every single part of your body and like try to critique small things like here and there within one workout. Like,
okay, so that stuff right there, like what he's doing, trying to balance everything, I do love doing that stuff. I do think some personal trainers go overboard with it because they got to show that they're doing something different and special, and they got to get their Instagram videos of you doing squats on a physio ball and everything. The problem with a lot of that stuff is it's really good, and it's good to learn in the off season to kind of retrain your body in the way that it operates, but it takes a lot of energy. Like a lot of that stuff, like the really exotic stuff, you'd be better off, and like Devontae Adams says this very thing, better off just practicing football. Practice your sport, run routes. You want to get better. You don't need like exotic agility drills to get better at running routes. You need to run routes. So I do like what he's doing there. It's just sometimes it's a little bit, these damn Instagram's ruined everybody. Instagram and marketing. So that's Henry To'oTo'o. Did I say To'oTo'o again? Arian? Oh my God. To'oTo'o. Okay, this is Mr. To'oTo'o talking about these injuries that his son had leading into the combine.
I mean, he literally only had 3 weeks. After he was set to heal, he pulled his groin on the first day back. He had a groin injury.
So you see those numbers. I mean, a 4.62 is fine for a linebacker. I think when you think of perhaps kind of a very good, solid, fundamentally sound football player, played at Alabama, produced, and yet doesn't quite project. If you look at this is the spider chart, you see where the parts are out, the more surface area, the better ranked you are. So he's in the 90th percentile for hand size, which I always find impressive. Hand size might be probably one of the most universally overrated things in terms of just the first impression that a guy makes when he shakes your hand. And you're like, well, this is a manly man. Now look at the hand shake on this dude. And it skews your judgment for everything else. I would love to find the correlation on that more so than like vertical jump or anything. But you can see with his broad jump, with his vertical, with his 20-yard shuttle, he doesn't test as the most explosive guy. So when he makes plays as a linebacker, he's got football speed. Don't get me wrong, he's not slow as hell, but he's not like a sideline to sideline Ray Lewis guy. If he does make it in the NFL, it's going to be because of his superior football IQ, and he's going to hopefully contribute on special teams, and somewhere along the way, things might really click for him. He's a 5th round pick. I really, really hope it works out for him. Like it's not often that it does work out for 5th round picks, but he's the right kind of guy. This is, he ended up having his dad after the combine prepare him for his pro day instead of the whichever performance facility he was using there.
It was just an idea that I had, like going over my old videos that I was watching when I was working out, like back at home during COVID. In my head, I was just like, like this is the one guy that knows me the most. Like he knows my flaws, he knows how I need to turn, he knows where my feet need to be. I knew nobody better but him to come for something like this. So
yeah, I just like that again, where I told you, like with Will Anderson references his family a lot, Alabama guy. To'oTo'o references his family a lot. He is very tight-knit. He's got 7 brothers and sisters. So between Will Anderson and Henry To'oTo'o alone, in your front 7 right now, you've got 12 siblings amongst those 2 guys. It's pretty impressive. It's gonna get crowded in the family meeting room. So this is Henry To'oTo'o talking about his upbringing in Sacramento, which those of you who have watched these before know that Sacramento, he does not paint Sacramento out as like the most Norman Rockwell style upbringing.
I tell people this all the time, like when I tell the coaches this too, like I'm from Sacramento, California. I wasn't supposed to make it out, and I wasn't supposed to be here. Like I wasn't supposed to be sitting in this chair. I wasn't supposed to be at the NFL Combine. Like all the odds were stacked against me.
I feel like that's I'm all for putting chips on your shoulder. I feel like he might be like generalizing Sacramento as all his one neighborhood, because he grew up in a rough neighborhood. His father was shot in a case of mistaken identity and got basically caught in a case of mistaken identity in a bad neighborhood. And so that part of it is, but I feel like Sacramento, they've produced, I looked it up, Jason Sehorn, Lance Briggs, Ray Caruth, and other NFL players. So it's not that bad a place. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you that Sacramento, as everybody knows, is it's America's farm to fork capital. There's nothing wrong with being the farm to fork capital. This is Mr. To'oTo'o, who is, if you've watched these documentaries, you know that he's a damn poet. He speaks very, very almost melodically about his son. It's really impressive.
They'll be ready for the guy that's gonna put everything on his shoulders. Be ready for the guy that doesn't leave nobody behind. Be ready for the guy that's gonna come there and just work his butt off and make things happen.
Work out with chains.
The kid that doesn't give up. He never has, never will.
I'm going to let it fade to black there. Okay. So the next one, episode 4, is his draft day experience. And I think that with Henry To'oTo'o, I am intrigued where there seems to be a theme over these last couple of years of drafting guys in the mid rounds who are very much like football gym rats, like guys that really, really like football, don't mind being coached hard, all that good stuff. In the past, and I'm not even criticizing this, it's just a different technique. I felt like Rick Smith, for instance, sometimes liked taking guys in the 3rd, 4th rounds that were maybe guys who were very, very talented, but weren't actually as good as they should be, like underperformers, where Nick seems to have a proclivity for taking guys who are maybe overachievers. Now there's pitfalls and drawbacks to both of those scenarios, except that I think the one thing you could say is the guys who tend to be overachievers are guys I would rather hang out with than, like the John Mechie's of the world. I'd rather hang out with a John Mechie than various other 3rd round busts of the Texans. So I know John Mechie really, really, really cares about football. So that's where I am with that. Please like, subscribe. I'm Seth Payne, played for the Texans. I played 10 years in the NFL. Now I have my YouTube channel, and I have a morning sports radio show, Payne and Pendergast, which you can listen to from 6 to 10 a.m. on weekdays in Houston on 6:10 a.m. As we move on into our reaction series of The Road to the Pros, a University of Alabama joint that they put out as they documented Henry To'oTo'o's Road to the Pros. We move on to episode 4, the final episode in which Henry To'oTo'o finds out that he is going to the Houston Texans. And just like CJ Stroud, he's got a massive chip on his shoulders by the end of this. I said shoulders, plural. There's that many chips on his shoulder.
Family here, don't really want too many people here. I'd rather, celebrate it with the people that's, been in my life the whole time.
As far as I got distracted by it. Let me address this real quick. Sacramento is not that bad. I respect your views and understand that it wasn't easy all the time. I think, but I was saying Sacramento's not that bad, I guess. I don't know. You know what? I mean, there's good and bad in every city. Like there's good neighborhoods, there's bad neighborhoods. What I'm saying is I feel like he's representing his neighborhood as all of Sacramento, where that's just not the case. Like you could grow up in any larger city or even mid-sized city in the US. If you grow up in a good neighborhood and you say like, hey, it's heaven here in Sacramento, or if you say it's hell here in Sacramento, it's just different. So back to Henry To'oTo'o. I do think the small draft party, if you are not a bona fide, definitely going in the first round guy, have a small draft party. My God, it drags on and on and on. And I got drafted when there were only 2 days in the draft and I was a second day guy. If you're a third day guy, man, like it's like any other situation in life where well-meaning people can say things with pure intentions and it just starts to get on your nerves because there's like, you just keep waiting and waiting. You keep getting rejected and rejected. Your third cousin is eating all the hors d'oeuvres and it gets to be a long day. So, smart move by his family there, having a smaller party. He got a message from Christian Harris, his college teammate at Alabama, and very, very good friends since their senior year in high school. But this is just a message that it looks like they played this for him. The producers played it for him on draft day.
And Tim, you my dog, bro. We locked in for life. There's not too much to be said on that, but like I said, you my brother for life, man. And I'm happy for you. I'm excited to see this draft. Find out where this boy finna be at. In the world. But like I said, I'm just happy and proud of you, man. And I'm gonna keep praying for you and hoping God, is with him the whole way, keeping him protected.
So I do like I like that there's all these Alabama guys. If you're gonna steal from a program like that, where they like those guys do not buckle under hard discipline at all, obviously. And I think that's when you're trying to establish a new culture, it is important to have guys who aren't going to be malcontents, who aren't going to just be griping about every little thing. And always, there's guys, you get to the NFL and it's grown men and the guys are going to speak up when they think that things are a little out of hand. But there's also a lot of guys that are just going to flat out act like, oh no, pro football players are supposed to be, treated like delicate crystal or something. And that's not what DeMeco's into. So Christian Harris, Will Anderson, John Mechie, and I think Henry To'oTo'o, who Henry To'oTo'o is not going to step into a starting role immediately, but Christian Harris hopefully will be starting this year. So it's nice to have those kinds of guys. Okay, we get to day 2 of the draft when things get really, really long. Because remember, To'oTo'o was projected to be, I believe, anywhere from a 3rd through 6th round guy. The second day is the 3rd round. So you're sitting there anticipating, I don't know, maybe even slipping up into the 2nd round or something. That's a long time to sit and wait, not knowing whether you're even going to get drafted that day or be a rookie free agent that day.
The Denver Broncos select Drew Sanders, linebacker.
Deion Henley, linebacker.
Trenton Simpson, linebacker.
Dorian Williams, linebacker.
Ventrell Miller, linebacker from Florida.
All right, we still got the Niners.
Okay, so that was Ventrell Miller went in the 4th round, right? So that was on into the next day. That's a long day, man. It's long. And you're somebody that's, you're somebody that's never been rejected like that, and you just keep getting rejected over and over and over again. It's a long weekend. I had zero expectations whatsoever, and I thought it was a long day. This is a guy that's been a stud at Alabama and Tennessee, and it feels you're stacking chips on your shoulder that whole time.
Hello, Henry. What's up, man?
Coach, how you doing?
Hey, doing great, man. Congratulations.
Appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Excited to add you to the family, brother.
See, I feel like I don't want to overread just this one little sliver. It feels like he's exhausted at this point, and again, he's just reserved in this moment or anything. He's being respectful, but I'm projecting myself onto him and what it was like for me on draft day. I felt very, very relieved, but I also didn't necessarily have the weight of expectation from having to gone to a school like Alabama.
Well, how you doing?
Good. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. It's a blessing.
We're excited for you and excited to get you here, put you to work.
Oh, yeah. We got to get to work.
There you
That's
go.
the only way.
It's also, I never know I don't like being on the telephone, and sometimes with those awkward pauses, my first instinct would be like, okay, I got to go. But when you're on the phone with the billionaire owner of your sports team, you just got to sit there and abide the silence. It's hard to do. They might retract their draft pick with me because I would hang up on the owner. But then his family gets super excited. Well, let me get you back here. Just like screwing with you guys. There we go.
I appreciate you.
Excited to add you to the family, brother.
Well, how you doing?
Good. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. It's a blessing.
We're excited for you and excited to get you here, put you to work.
Oh, yeah. We got to get to work.
There you
That's
go.
the only way.
But then
have a good one. Appreciate it.
Here comes his family.
We're Texans.
You going to Texas?
Houston.
I don't know who the woman is that popped that confetti thing, but I like her. Okay, so there's a part where he was. Let's see. I want to be sure. First he talks about the celebration, the dream come true.
This is something that I dreamt of, and it's something that seemed so far away and seemed like so unattainable when I was at such a young age, and to be able to.
Here's where he loosens up. And by the way, you see that? Athletes first.
Just hear it.
That's Mulligetta's thing, right?
And be around
we're not afraid of Mulligetta, everybody.
That have seen me work and grind and put all my blood, sweat, and tears into this sport to get me to where I'm at now. Like, I can't do nothing but just smile, man. Like, be thankful for where I'm at.
Yeah, obviously there he loosened up a little bit. And I think that's one thing I feel like with CJ Stroud, we saw that too. Like, the stress of the pre-draft process kind of takes its toll on some of these guys, and they feel like they got to be just buttoned up and perfect the whole time. And then afterwards, all of a sudden, all right, man, I can breathe a little bit and I can go play football. It's a long process from training camp of your final season in college to a bowl game to preparing for the combine to pro days to the draft. It's almost like almost a full year. And, you had spring practice the year before. It's a lot. It's a lot. Like it wears a lot of guys down, and they just kind of got to be able to breathe again. And then, 3 days later, pack up and go to Houston. But here's where he talks about the chip on his shoulder, which I love.
I know everybody who went before me, what round they went in, what team they went to. And I don't think that's ever going to leave me. Like, that's never going to leave my mind. And that chip or that brick on my shoulder is going to stay with me for my whole NFL career. It's just, I remember sitting there and watching those guys get picked. And the feeling that I had, and I don't ever want to have that feeling. I have nothing to prove to nobody. I have everything to prove to myself that I'm the best backer in this draft.
So
this would be a really
go back to the beginning there. So like I said, I really I love guys having chips on their shoulder. I think what he was talking about there, and I'll bounce this off to include it from Mr. Robot. I don't understand how such a good player with his stat production fell so far, especially from Alabama. Do you feel it was his size? I think a combination of just size, overall speed, like he's not blazingly fast to the sideline. At times, he's a little bit scattershot in his responsibilities, which is it's just weird and it's hard to explain because I think he's got a really good football IQ. He's not as consistent as I think he could or would be. And maybe that some of that might just be scheme. Sometimes it's defensive linemen screwing up in front of you. So I'm not like crushing him for it. But there's another thing that happens with linebackers sometimes. You got to remember when a linebacker plays on a really good defense, there are a lot of plays being funneled to him. So you see this with, Manti Te'o, actually. It was the first guy that springs to mind. You're an awesome middle linebacker in college, but you're also on an awesome defense. Well, it's a lot easier to get into those passing lanes. It's a lot, you don't have as big of a bubble to cover. A lot of things are being forced back to you. So the production sometimes doesn't tell the whole story. And what he's doing right there, it's funny. I think it's good that he's got a chip on his shoulder. I do think sometimes guys from bigger schools, it's a trap to fall into if they start to feel a sense of entitlement. Like, hey, I was awesome at Alabama and these guys are getting taken ahead of me. Because I had as a 4th round pick from a small school, and the Chad Levitt, a teammate of mine in college, and we were the first guys to get drafted out of Cornell in 20 years. And we I got to the NFL and I would look at guys and be like, this guy got a scholarship at Alabama. Fuck him. Fuck this guy. And they were like, oh, this guy went to Florida State. This guy sucks. That was the chip on my shoulder. It was like, oh, this guy, this guy was an All-American in the Big Ten. I'm going to kick his ass. So there's there's guys out there that were late bloomers or didn't get a scholarship to Alabama or Tennessee that are going to come after you and beat the crap out of you. So it works both ways, but the chip works as the chip works. I like Henry To'oTo'o. I'm not talking about it. I know why he got a scholarship. He deserved it. But please subscribe. Excuse my language there. I went into football mode for a moment. I got to catch the end of the Astros game unless it's already, what time is it? No, we're good. And I'll put out a DeAndre Hopkins video either tonight, probably tomorrow. And appreciate everybody. Subscribe, and look for more videos. Daily Texans news, daily NFL news as we head on. Once we get to training camp, it'll be daily, 7 days a week. I'm getting my systems and processes down, so I just do it automatically. Really appreciate all the feedback. You guys had some really good questions, and I'd actually like to answer a bunch of them from previous episodes too. So maybe we'll do just a question and answer one here. Thanks for the chat. Okay, yes. Okay, I'm going to leave now. I got to cook.